More intelligent? Ooh, I want to be smarter. How about you? I think everybody wants to be smarter. Everybody wants to be more intelligent. Everybody wants to have a better ability to distinguish what is right, what is wrong, and how to make decisions. Yet, it is quite a bit of a challenge for Jehovah's Witnesses. The reason why I'm recording this is because I talk to so many people who feel like, you know what? I spent 10, 20, 30 years, 40 years in the organization. And when I left, I feel like I'm a child. I feel like I'm a teenager. I feel like I'm completely unprepared for the life outside. And a lot of people are really struggling in this. And I feel for them because in many aspects of my life, I had to learn things that I should have learned when I was a teenager, literally. And I had to catch up. I got to admit, many things was not easy. So we're going to talk about 4 different intelligences, okay? 4 things that make us humans more and more mature as we learn and get more experience in life. So the first one is what we call IQ, which is intelligence quotient. Intelligence quotient is when you have the ability to resolve things like math problems, science, and things, your ability to count and memorize things. That kind of an IQ, a lot of times depends of amount of schooling that you get, but it not always. As you remember, probably going to high school, we had the same teachers, we were all the same age, and there was 1 or 2 kids in the classroom that were really smart, book smart. They could, figured out math problems, no problem, while other kids that were sitting in the same classroom, same age, taught by the same teacher, and they couldn't figure stuff out, right? We're all different, and some people are stronger in one area than the other. However, because most witnesses finish their education at the level of high school, many of them didn't finish high school, and the so-called higher education was frowned upon. A lot of them, their IQ didn't grow. See, our brain develops the most up to the 28th year of our life. So if you stop at the age of 18 or 19 and you never went to college, your brain simply didn't develop as much as those who went to universities and kept on learning and kept on studying. That doesn't mean you're going to be happier or less happy, but a lot of people who went to higher education, you can actually see it. You can hear the way they talk, the way they protect or present themselves. They a lot more refined because they have a higher education. And as a matter of fact, the IQ depends on their ability to recognize patterns. Ability to recognize patterns is extremely important when it comes to our knowledge and wisdom, because if you can figure it out, the patterns, you can figure it out what's going to happen in the future and how to prepare for it. So math is all about patterns. Science is all about recognition of patterns. And when we see those patterns repeating itself, then we can say, oh, you know what? I know this because I remember from this and this example, and this is what is going to happen in the future. So IQ is very important, but a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses really struggle with this area if they were not schooled properly. And many of them were schooled even at home when they were cut off from the social network of kids. And a lot of times that really, slow down their growth. So how do we improve from this? So let's say you woke up, you left. How do you improve? Well, it's your ability to memorize things and your ability to resolve problems. You're going to have to study. This is an IQ, is when you actually pick up books and you study, and you can pick up some really smart people even online on YouTube videos, when you watch some professors resolving certain issues and problems, and listen to them and see how they do it. And ability to evaluate evidence is extremely important when it comes to helping your IQ. Otherwise, you can be persuaded by other people who seem to be smart. And a lot of times what happens is people who hear something that makes sense to them, but they don't know how to evaluate the evidence properly. They don't know whether things are measurable, whether they're repeatable, whether they're testable, and they don't know how to draw proper conclusions. So they see somebody who sounds smart and is very charismatic. It's like, yeah, this guy, he's right. He really knows what he's talking about. And he could really persuade you into believing something that it's simply incorrect. So that's what is one of the things that we have to do. I remember myself, I was like, you know what? I thought we had the best knowledge. I thought we had the best education. After all, this is what we said. We said that we had the superior knowledge and superior education being witnesses because we had the best education and the best knowledge and the best Bible and the best organization and the best God and the best religion and the best unity. You name it, we had all the best, and the world had everything worse. Why would you look into anything else if we had the best? It's like looking at the second best. So this is where the challenge is. You wake up, you realize a lot of the doctrines, a lot of things were not accurate, they were not correct. Who are you going to look up to? When previously the governing body was the ultimate authority, who are you going to look up to now? So the beauty about studying and looking into more detailed stuff that can help us to understand things better is the fact that we don't have to agree with everything. See, when we were Jehovah's Witnesses, we were listening to a talk, we were listening to the speakers, and we had to agree with everything they said. You couldn't possibly be a Jehovah's Witness and disagree with 1% of the teachings. You couldn't. Because when you were going door to door, you had to teach everything that the Jehovah's Witnesses were teaching. When you become a teacher, you have to represent all the ideas. When you're a Catholic, you're not a teacher, unless you're a priest. But if you're a Catholic and you disagree with 10, 20, 30% of what the priest is saying, it's okay. It's not a problem. But it is a problem when you're a Jehovah's Witness. Can you imagine? The Jehovah's Witnesses says, yeah, I agree with everything you guys are saying. Everything. I just want to celebrate birthdays. That's it. But everything else, I'm going to obey. Everything else, I understand. Just these birthday things, I think it's too much. I'm going to celebrate birthdays. But everything else, I agree with. No, you can't do that. That's impossible. It's everything or nothing, right? So now that you're out of that system and you realize not everything is black and white, start reading books and disagree with people. That's the beauty part. You can read a very smart book and agree with 10, 20, 50, 80% of what the author is saying. You don't have to agree with everything. Just pick and choose what makes sense to you. And you'll see that the more perspective you have, the more you learn from other people, the more things will start make sense. And you'll be able to recognize more and more patterns based on what people learn, what they teach, and how they observe the reality around us. So that's number one, IQ. Number two, it's emotional intelligence, right? Emotional quotient, as they call it, EQ. That is your ability to control your emotions when you're not reacting to the things that are happening around you, but you're acting upon them. When you have seen and experienced enough things that you know how to react and how to act upon the things that are happening. See, when you're in reaction, it almost feels like somebody else is running the show. When you're just reacting to a trigger, somebody got you upset, somebody got you frustrated, somebody got you angry, you're blaming somebody else for that person made me feel so and so. The EQ, when this emotional quotient, is when we have the ability to choose how we're going to feel. Now you might think that's not possible because frustration, anger, all those things just happen. They just happen. We're triggered and they happen. And we have no control over it. It's true that we all react to things and it's impossible to control emotions 100%. However, what we can do is manage them, and we learn how to manage them, and we learn how to run them so they don't run us. So we can feel certain emotion, but we say, you know what? I feel angry, but I'm not going to feel angry more than for 2 minutes. And I give myself 2 minutes max to feel angry. And the emotion's got to come out. You can express yourself. It's fine. It's normal. However, you don't want to live there. You don't want to live with anger. You don't want to live with frustration. All those emotions that you're experiencing, all what they are is action signals. If you're angry, it means something. That means that somebody violated your rule. That means injustice happened. And now you have a choice. Well, if injustice happened, what do I do about it? If you're frustrated, that means you had certain expectation. You told somebody, I expect you to be here at 7 o'clock, and they show up at 7:30 and they totally don't care, right? It frustrates you. because you had a rule. What rule is it that somebody violating that makes you frustrated? Right? You're sad. Oh, if you're sad, that means there was a loss. What was the loss? What have you lost? Can you gain something from it? Sadness is also a message. Every feeling that we have, it's a message into our system. Right? When we were Jehovah's Witnesses, the challenge with this is that although when we were going door to door, we were taught how to act, we were taught how not to react to people who were angry at us. I'm pretty sure you had people who would open the door and yell at you, and people who would be frustrated with you, called you names or whatever, and you had to compose yourself. Don't get into arguments. Never yell at anyone. Don't get angry at the householder. You knew how to do this. But sometimes when we leave and we're like, I'm just gonna be myself and authentic, and your authenticity might not serve you well, because very often people are authentic, but they're damaging all the relationships because they want to express their anger and frustration and sadness and whatever it is. And that is not very developed person. Your ability to recognize what the emotions are giving you as a signal, what message that signal is. If that emotion is strong, even depression, feeling inadequate, right? Feeling hopeless, all those things are nothing else than action signals that are telling you, hey, if you feel inadequate, that means you got to study. That means you got to prepare yourself. That you got to train yourself. That's the message of feeling inadequate. And when you feel like you're overwhelmed, that's a message. That's a message. You got to prioritize things because there's too many things in your life and you cannot prioritize properly. Those were messages in your system, and you got to learn how to interpret them so you act upon it. Don't react to it, and don't say I'm a victim because, oh, you know what, I have so many triggers now that maybe Jehovah's Witnesses installed in your mind, and now you're a victim of it. No, you're not. No, you're not. You are the person who is in control of your life, nobody else. Sure, there were patterns before that now maybe you feel certain way when you hear a kingdom song, when you see Jehovah's Witnesses going door to door, when you see them on the street corner, and maybe things come up because of the injustice that was done to you. But a lot of that stuff is your frame of mind, because the same person one person can feel angry every time they pass a kingdom hall, and another person will feel happy seeing the same thing, the same stimuli, went through the same thing. Both got this fellowship, both lost their family, both were um, experienced an enormous amount of injustice. And guess what? One person is happy they don't have to go back there anymore. They don't have to do this anymore. They don't have to stand on the street corner in the middle of a winter and give people watchtowers. One person smiles. Another person is angry, like, how could they take away so many years of my life? And every time they see them, how is it possible that two people have the same experience and yet they react totally different? Is because their emotional quotient is different. One person is smarter emotionally, while the other one is not. They learn how to interpret and reframe the things that took place in order to be the master of their emotions instead of a victim of it. That was number 2. What is number 3? Number 3 is a social quotient. Social is your ability to make friends, your ability to basically find yourself in a gathering. How are you handling that? The Jehovah's Witnesses actually, they were trained how to talk to strangers because we had to. We had to go door to door. We had a message. We had, presentations. We had to practice and so on. And although we were not comfortable at it, especially at the beginning, it was very uncomfortable to do so. But guess what? We had to overcome that fear. It was awkward. Many times it was awkward, especially the so-called um, witnessing to family members, witnessing at school, witnessing to coworkers. That was really challenging. But guess what? We felt fear, we felt discomfort, but we did it anyways. That was our strength. We were able to learn how to talk to strangers. And that's a good skill. That is a skill that many people don't have. I remember I was trying to go into the business with another person who was not a witness. And I told him, listen, we got to start calling people, potential clients. We got to go literally from business to business, from door to door on to different businesses and show them our idea and show them how we're going to do it and present it, right? Make a little brochure and so on, instructions. And he's like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And I was like, for me, that's nothing. It's not a problem because I've done thousands of doors and I heard rejection after rejection after rejection. And for me, it was like, it's normal. And he's like, oh no, after business number 3, which I had to talk to the people, I see him being super uncomfortable, like, oh no, this is never gonna work. We're never gonna stop. I'm like, stop. We don't stop. we keep going no matter what. I don't care how many people say no to us. We keep going. That was my mindset, because as a Jehovah's Witness, you don't stop. I don't care if you hear 1,000 times, no, I'm not interested. We don't stop. And that was my belief. And guess what? His belief was not there. His belief is like, oh, 5 people, 3 people don't listen to us. I'm ready to give up. Well, you can't be successful in business with that kind of mindset. So for that, I'm actually grateful as a witness, because he trained me to take the rejection and keep on going. Take the rejection, keep on going. However, when it comes to social gatherings now, a lot of witnesses have a hard time because everybody outside of the organization and congregation was demonized. See, we develop friendships really quickly among Jehovah's Witnesses. Even if you move from one city to another, you just have to find a kingdom hall. And guess what? You find a kingdom hall, you find people who are just like you. They have the same mindset. You know exactly what they're doing on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, right? You knew so much about their mindset, what kind of life they have. You had a lot of things in common. Plus, you agreed on all the doctrines. So you had people with 80% of the same type of thinking like you do. It was very easy to make friends. But outside, it's not so much, because you could disagree on many things. You can disagree on political views. You can disagree on religious views. You can disagree on morality and what's moral, what's immoral, what's good, what's bad, and so on. And there's so many differences. You're going to hear people disagreeing with you a lot outside of the organization. And guess what? Every time somebody disagreed with us when we were Jehovah's Witnesses, even if it was just 1%, that was a red flag. Like I mentioned, you cannot possibly agree with 99% of the teachings when you're a Jehovah's Witness. You have to agree with 100 of them. So if somebody disagreed with us, if somebody said, oh no, I don't believe in this doctrine, that person was viewed as a traitor. That person was viewed as an apostate. That person was viewed as a bad association at best. But many people got disfellowshipped or got shunned or got marked because they said, I don't think this is right. I don't think that this doctrine, that this teaching is correct. I have a different idea about that. And if they spread this among the members of the congregation, they had to be removed. So what that basically created is this fear of disagreeing. You couldn't have your own opinion. You couldn't have your own thoughts and ideas, even though if they were wrong, if you just want to brainstorm what other people think and want to get their thoughts and ideas, you couldn't do that when it comes to the religion. You had to agree on everything. You could disagree on color of the paint on the wall in the Kingdom Hall if you wanted to. And you still had to be careful of how you verbalize that. So it's very important now to learn how to make friends outside of the Jehovah's Witness environment, because you're going to have to make friends with people you disagree with. And that's the beauty about it. Because you know what? Every time you disagree with something with somebody, it's the moment when you can say, hey, you know what? I'm just learning about somebody else's opinion. That doesn't mean you have to accept it. That doesn't mean you have to agree with it. That doesn't mean you have to say, oh, this is good. This is, you agree with that. No, you could disagree and still be friends. That's a new concept for a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses. So I remember myself, I was scared of telling people, what I believe, what I don't believe, because I'm like, oh, they're going to reject me. Because that's normal among Jehovah's Witnesses. The moment you say, I don't believe what you guys believe, you're rejected. You're labeled worldly, apostate, weak spiritually, you name it. There is a label for everybody. And you were afraid maybe when you left the organization that you're going to be labeled if you disagree with people. So your social network shrink and you're trying to rebuild it, and it's not easy because maybe there's a lot of blockers over there thinking, I don't know how people will see me if I disagree with them, if I verbalize my opinion and it's different than theirs. Does that mean they're going to see me as a traitor? Does that mean they're not going to like me anymore? Does that mean that it's going to be awkward? What does it mean? In order for us to learn the skill, the social skill outside of the environment of Jehovah's Witnesses, go find people you disagree with, completely disagree with, and treat them like humans. And don't worry that they're going to reject you. You can say things in such a way that it's kind and polite, but stand your ground. And you know what we're going to notice? That first of all, your self-esteem will grow enormously. But at the same time, you're going to be able to see people for who they are, and how they treat you is the most important, not what they believe in, not their opinions. Because when we judge people or prejudge them based on their beliefs, then there is disconnect. Just like Jehovah's Witnesses would disconnect with people who are worldly because they're afraid that the association with them could influence their thinking. It could influence their way of living and being. So they would discourage even kids to play with other kids at school or after school. Some parents I saw, they pulled their kids out of school completely and they homeschooled them because they were afraid of the worldly association. So that person now goes into a workplace and they don't know how to interact with people out there. So they isolate themselves. They go for lunch, separately, and they just watch the clock. When can I go home? I've seen that. I remember I went to trade school, and there was one kid in my class that was extremely awkward. And I tried to talk to him many times, and it was just awkward the entire time. I'm like, maybe it's just his personality, and maybe he just, shy or whatever. But no matter how many times I tried to engage with him, he's just gave me those very quick answers and didn't really want to talk. I asked him if we can go and have lunch together, and he refused. Finally, the teacher said, "Oh, you guys are going to be working on this project together, and you have to create this plan and project together." And I said, "Okay, here after school we sit in the library and we got to do this." And he's like, "No, no, no. I'll do everything myself. I'll do my portion and I'm going to do your portion." And I'm like, "No, we have to work on this together, right? Like, this is a project for both of us." He's like, "Don't worry about it. Just do this little part at home and I'm going to do the rest of it myself." It was very awkward. And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." And I suspected that maybe he's a witness, but I didn't ask him. He didn't ask me. We went our separate ways when the school was over. And then maybe 6 months later, he saw me at the assembly. And then he just almost ran up to me. He's like, "Oh, I can't believe that you are a witness. Oh man, I wish I knew. It would have been so different, right? We would have gone for lunches together. We would have done this." I'm like, "Are you serious?" I don't know. Maybe he was just trained to be separate from the world, as they say, to the point where we couldn't even do a project together that was assigned to us at school. Because in his eyes, I was worldly. It's kind of odd. I personally, I didn't grow up like this. My father was a Catholic, and I grew up with kids who were Catholics all around me, plus my cousins and my neighbors. They were all Catholics. So it was normal for me to have regular interactions with people who were not witnesses. But a lot of people would had this barrier of, no, 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 we can only associate with Jehovah's Witnesses. And even then they had this label, "Oh, if you are a pioneer, you better associate with other pioneers. Otherwise, if you associate with people who are not pioneers, guess what? They're going to talk you out of pioneering, because after all, we're all going to end up in paradise no matter whether you're a pioneer or not. So why pioneer, right?" So I've heard those talks also. So it's emotionally and socially, it's challenging for Jehovah's Witnesses because they never developed social skills outside of their circle. But it's very important to realize that, you know what? we can disagree and be friends. We can have different religions. We can have different viewpoints. And that does not mean that I'm going to treat you bad. I'm going to cut you off, or I'm going to shun you just because you think differently or imagine the invisible world is different than me. It's a concept that a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses have to learn, because I see so many people that are like, oh, now I didn't learn the truth. Now I know the truth about the truth. And if you don't, follow Jesus, or if you don't do this, if you don't do that, then they're still in that mindset of, you got to do what I tell you, or you got to believe what I believe. Otherwise, we're not friends. No, we can definitely respect each other, and we have totally two different beliefs, and we still love each other. I think even more, because the moment you disagree with someone and the person is totally fine with it, guess what that does? That shows you that the person cares about you no matter what you tell them, that you could be honest and authentic, and you can disagree and tell the person your point of view, because you know that even if they disagree, they're still gonna be your friend. It's a friendship that is on much deeper level. Social skills are growing exponentially because we can disagree and still be friends. That is a concept, something to think about. And the fourth one is adversity quotient. That is an ability to overcome a really big challenges in life. And Jehovah's Witnesses really had a hard time with that. That part of intelligence, when it comes to adversity, is when things are tough and you have to rely on your own strength. And Jehovah's Witnesses really had a hard time with this, because when something was tough, they had to rely on the organization. They had to rely on the elders. They had to rely on the group, and somebody else would solve the problem for them, which is not a bad thing, to have a tribe of people and friends or family that will support you during the tough times. Don't get me wrong. I was very happy to see, especially in my congregation, how the congregation was helping one another. It was beautiful. I will never take that away from them. We had program of shoveling snow for elderly. We were visiting the elderly in old age home or hospitals or homes. I've seen sisters delivering food and groceries to older sisters in the congregation. Absolutely, that is a fantastic support. And I will never take that away from Jehovah's Witnesses, because I've seen this in my congregation and I was proud of them. I was part of it and I loved it. And I've seen many people who, without it, would truly be lost. Truly. There was one sister in our congregation, she started getting really weak in her final years. And I've seen the sisters in the congregation truly helping her, not just bringing her to the meeting and back, but she had this social network of people going to her and supporting her and bringing her groceries and taking care of her medicine. We shovel snow in the winter for her, or take care of landscaping, whatever. It was fantastic. I love doing that work. So it's good to have that stuff. However, overcoming challenges was a problem, because when the problem occurred in our life, no matter how tough it was, a lot of times we were told, do not lean on your own understanding. And if you go to the elders for help, the solution to, no matter what the problem was always the same: more prayer, more meetings, more studying, more door-to-door witnessing. If a couple had a problem, and they really had a problem, and the marriage is falling apart, they go to the elders and they say, well, is the man a head of the family? Is he doing the family study? As a woman, is she in subjection to the man? Right? And if you're not, perfect at the meetings, then they will tell you, more studying, more praying, more going to the meetings, go to service together, the marriage will start working out, right? Because they always believe that, if you guys both go in the same direction, it will help you out. It is true that when two people working on something together, it does bring them closer. But that doesn't mean that advice was good for every single situation. So a lot of people, remember, come to elders with challenges and problems, and they were not able to resolve even simple problems because they rely on somebody else to tell them what to do. And then when they leave, they don't have that support, they don't have the elders, they don't have the congregation They don't trust the books that they had, the problems occur in life, and they don't know how to handle them. And a lot of times they handle them like kids, like teenagers at best. It's hard to watch. People feel like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to do everything in life I was told not to. And there are consequences to that kind of behavior, and they make really poor choices, and they're paying for them sometimes for a lifetime. And unfortunately, I've seen that happen when I saw people getting addicted and their life deteriorate. Even one of my friends died because he drank himself to death. It was hard to watch, but in many cases, I told this many times, it would have been better for them never to wake up. It would have been better for them. They had a better quality of life inside the congregation than when they woke up and they never handled the problems, because they never had the intelligence for emotions, for social, for IQ, for adversity. They never had that. When we leave, it is extraordinary because it's so hard. It's so hard when you're realizing that everybody that you ever loved and care about will never even acknowledge your existence. You're nobody to them. You're dead to them. And you never even hurt them. And you love them and you care about them. And guess what? They still love you. They still care about you. And they still want to see you in the new system. So if you return to the congregation, they'll treat you right. But if you don't, they don't want to see you. They don't want to know you. You're nobody to them. They'll ghost you. And that is painful. That disconnect is extremely painful. And a lot of people don't know how to outgrow it. But the truth is, when you overcome it, when you overcome that challenge, when you lift yourself up and you rebuild your life after this, then you will see that other people's problems that are so hard, you're going to be like, step aside, I'll handle it. I just came out of a cold. What is this? Nothing. Because that strength, that emotional strength, that strength for your ability to overcome challenges will become so much stronger because you were able to overcome the challenges that you're overcoming right now. Being shunned by family, friends, destroyed your faith, destroyed your identity, destroyed your loved ones, your connection, your relationships. You had to rebuild everything from scratch. That took courage. That took strength. And when you overcome this, you become so much more powerful, so much more powerful. But you got to work at it. Tell you what, there's three things in this aspect. They're gonna hit you. We call it a feather, a brick, and a truck. A feather is when the people that you're hanging around with, right, your closest friends, in that context of Jehovah's Witnesses would be your congregation. But do you do something that it's, you know what, maybe you shouldn't go and see that movie, right? So it's a feather, right? When they say, you know what, I'm not really comfortable with that. Maybe you invite them over and they're like, I don't want to see this movie. It's kind of not for Christians, right? I want to focus on more spiritual things. That's a feather, right? It's like, right? Maybe your conscience allows you, but their conscience does not allow you. There's no written rule what you cannot do, but that's a feather. And then there is something that you do that it's going to hit like a brick, right? That you cross that line and you know you're going to have a conversation with elders. Let's say you fall in love with somebody who's not a witness. They're going to hit you with a brick. They're not going to disfellowship you, but they're going to hit you with a brick. They're going to mark you. They're going to say, you can't do this. It brings a really bad reputation, and they're going to talk to you, try to break that relationship apart. They can't stop you. They can't disfellowship you for it, but trust me, it's not going to be pleasant. They're going to hit you with a brick. And then there's a third one, which we call a truck. When you cross a line, I don't know what it is. Maybe you had sex with somebody outside marriage. Maybe you smoke a cigarette, or maybe you started questioning their doctrines and spread it to other people. Whatever it was, you got this fellowship. And then you just felt like, I got run over by a truck. It just came like within one day, one sentence from a platform, and all my life is over. That is like, it feels like an accident, and you're gonna need time to heal, just like from an accident. You can't just shake it off and say, oh, I'm fine the next day after I slept. It's not going to happen. It's going to take weeks, months, in some people's years. Some people decades later, they still feel it because they were separated from their children or from their parents or whatever it was. It's tough. But guess what? When you do that work, when you heal, it's like with every bone, every time you break a bone, and if it heals properly, that bone becomes stronger than it was before it was broken. It's true. Every muscle, in order to grow, you got to rip it first. And guess what? When you rip the muscle, it hurts. It hurts because it's ripped. It goes like this. And then it grows. And then you rip it again, and then it grows. That's how you become stronger. But when you got hit by a truck, in order to put yourself up together, you got to do the healing. You got to do the work. But once you heal from it, you will see that your experience, your pain becomes your gift. Because all of a sudden now, you can be so valuable to everyone who's just waking up, to everyone who's just started questioning, to everybody who got kicked out of their home and they have no place to go, to everybody who lost their identity, who lost their friends, family, kids, future, hope, faith, you name it, everything that they lost, you already went through this. No therapist can possibly understand it. They can understand it from a book, but they don't have the heartfelt understanding of what it takes. They don't know what it means. They don't know how deep that stuff goes. But because you went through this, now your adversity intelligence is stronger because you can handle it. Because you know the path. You went through it already. It's like playing a video game with a kid. Did you ever make that mistake? I'll kill you in 3 seconds. Why? Is the child more intelligent? They just know the game. They know the pattern. They know which way to go. They can anticipate what you're going to do and what you cannot do because they've done it before. In the same thing with you. You don't have to be super smart, but if you walk that path already, you're going to be a gift to somebody else. And you'll see that the moment you start sharing that gift and understand that pain and connect with people on that level where you have the heartfelt understanding, you'll see how they're healing because of the pain that you went through. And that is a beautiful gift. Don't waste it. You never wasted one day in the JW world until you choose to waste it. Don't waste the gifts. Use it. Help others. And you'll see the happiness will find you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.